Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is create ourselves like a nice clean slate to work from. Just as a quick heads up, by the way, apologies if when you're accessing the files for this it has some unusual names for it. Things like crowd mechanics or things like that. Because my laptop only has like a certain amount of space on it, I've had to kind of double up on these projects kind of together, if not triple them, just because I don't know, space on the laptop's quite restricted, because each of these projects is about a gig, if not more. So what I'm going to do is, to begin with, I'm going to create myself a new level. I would suggest doing this from the top here, rather than in the content browser, because if you do it from the content browser, you won't get the option to set whether it's a default or an empty level. So I'm just going to choose default. Now I'll create me a brand new space to create my level in. Just to, as a reminder, always keep saving. So the first thing we're going to do is just save our level. Give it a name of whatever. I'm just going to call mine landscape. Keep it nice and simple. And from here, what we're going to do is just real quick delete the platform in the middle, and we're going to go to this section of our tools up here, and you'll see that there's one in the middle. It looks like a set of mountains. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to create you this vast expanse of a level, which is good for if you're building a full-scale game, but for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to keep that down to a much smaller sized map, just to first kind of not have us wasting too much time creating the landscape, but also to kind of save on rendering time and things like that. So the thing that we can do to change the scale of this down is, you can see this, I'll just bring this out a little bit. You'll see that there's this category called number of components. If I knock that down to 1 by 1, you can see we're able to work with a much smaller grid. Now, from here, what we're going to do is, if you want some kind of base material to work with, we're going to be changing this in a little bit, but I usually find if you're creating an environment, it's nice to have like some kind of texture to work with to get started with. So I'm gonna work with, and probably also try to avoid things with very complex kind of shaders and things like that. So try to stay away from things like chrome or, I don't know, stuff that's going to take a miserable amount of time to kind of compile. So just click create whenever you're ready, and it'll make you this basic environment and automatically kind of get you set with the brush tool. So similar to Photoshop, there's some simple hotkeys that are good to know. Your right and left square brackets next to usually next to the enter key are your scale up and down brushes. So you could have a huge brush to flesh out the majority of your level, and then a little brush to just kind of add in some kind of greater detail. Another one which is quite useful is, well, unless you're going to keep wanting to ascend your level upwards, you hold shift. That allows you to reverse the effect of the extrude tool, and allow you to kind of cut away at bits of the mountain and create a bit more varied environment. And yeah, the great thing with this is that you've got these tools here, but you've also got a bunch of other kind of options and things to experiment with. I won't be going through all of them, just because there's a bunch and they all have different kind of methods, and we've still got a lot to cover. So just bear with me a quick moment. Yeah, so during this little bit here, I'm just going to be fleshing out a basic level. Nothing too exciting. One thing that does sometimes help, and it will also help when you're painting your textures later, if you change from lit mode to unlit, it allows you to see the contours of your environment a little bit better. Because obviously, you know, sometimes they cast quite sharp shadows, harsh shadows, which can sometimes make it a bit difficult to see what you're doing. I'm just going to use, just to kind of mix up the level just a little bit, I'm going to use the noise tool. Now you've got to be careful with this one because it's quite a, can be quite an extreme tool if you don't kind of use it correctly. You can get some quite nice results out of it if you have the settings set reasonably low. If you have the settings too high, what you end up with is something that looks like this. Which basically kind of pushes it to two ends of the spectrum, you know, either very, very high or very, very low. But I'm just looking to have like some very kind of subtle changes to the environment. So yeah, I'm just going to dabble with that just for a little bit longer. And yeah, the kind of thing that you're wanting to have is just an environment where, you know, your character can begin and then navigate their way through the space. You know, at which point at the end of the level they'll have like something to aim for or to reach. So in what I'm going to be creating here, I'm going to have my character start at this point and then make their way to the top of the hill where that little beacon that I created is going to be. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with this. So let's take a quick look at it with lighting back on. Obviously this doesn't look very good with lighting on, so for that I'm going to kind of rebuild my lighting, but also kind of place the sun in a different location. A very quick and valid point. If you spawn now, having made some changes, you might find that you've fallen out of the level. That's obviously because you've been rising the level, and for the most part, the landscape doesn't have any physical volume beneath it. It's just essentially just a very complex collision, thin plane of collision with a lot of vertices. So what we're going to do is, if I try and select this now, this spawn, the problem is that my environment is in the way. So, or even if I try to select it from underneath, it still doesn't let me choose it. So what I'm going to do is make sure that I'm choosing the place tool, and that way I'll be able to select the object in question. So I'm just going to move that into the location that I want. Remember that the little arrow, blue arrow on the front of your spawner indicates, the one that isn't vertical, the light blue arrow indicates which direction you're facing. So I'm just going to rotate that to face the hill. So if I spawn in, you can see that I've got a long way to go. Yeah, so I'm just going to very quickly rebuild the lighting, see if that makes the kind of the harsh shadows of the level any better, and if not, I'm just going to quickly show you how to rotate the rotate the position of the sun. Now that has not done particularly much. So what I'm going to do is, if you come up to the world outliner, you'll see that there's a light source up here. Now if I change that location, you can see it shifts the lighting. You know, it changes it, makes it look, you know, affects it here, but you can see the sun is still there despite shadows being cast from, I believe, over this direction here. Which, to fix that, we need to update the material. So if we come to the sky sphere and click refresh material, that will change the position of the sun. I'm also going to dip the sun a little bit just to kind of make it look a little bit more dramatic. Now, one thing that is quite useful to know is, obviously in this situation, the sun is in actual alignment. Oh, whoops, wrong object selected. In this situation, the sun is actually in more or less alignment with the kind of widget, you know, gizmo object in the middle. But if you're wanting to kind of have better control of kind of the positioning of your object, what you can do is switch to local mode. And I know this doesn't look like it's helping very much, but it's because each one of these angles has been changed. If I set that back to a more useful angle, I can manipulate this angle here to get a better idea of, well, to be able to position my sun a little bit easier. You'll also notice that once again, as you update the texture, it updates the actual quality of the sunlight. And keep in mind as well that you may get some weird kind of artifacts passing through your level because the lighting actually passes underneath here and renders, in the level. That's why you're getting these weird lumps of sun, even though they're technically out of view. So it's a bit of a balancing game. You wouldn't get this situation as much with a larger environment because you essentially have the borders like way out of the player's reach. I'm just going to leave it at that for now, because that still gives you like a nice colour to the level, but without too much of the weird shadow renders. So we'll just have a quick jump into our level again. Very quickly just rebuild the lighting. And I think for this video we'll wrap this up here. And then in the next video, what I'm going to do is start looking at things like, oh wow, there are some unusual. Oh, that's just because of, I'll kind of fix these up. This is from the noise map that I did before. It's created some weird stuff. I can easily smoothen that out, which I'll do in between videos. But yeah, in the next video, what I'll be covering is getting the basic landscape textures set up. I might dabble into the into atmospheric effects to kind of create a certain feel for your level. But yeah, this tutorial's all wrapped up here. So yeah, see you in the next one.